What's up, guys? Welcome to Valley Vibes. Albert, how's it going, man?
It's going good. It's going good.
Yeah, I was telling you off camera that I haven't talked to you in a while, dude. And you've always been a mentor of mine, a business mentor of mine. I've always looked up to you, and I've always appreciated your insight and all the stuff that you helped. I felt like I would always get a master class from you when you would come in here and do your podcast. Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, you learned a lot, man.
Tons. But I don't think. Well, before we go into the conversation, kind of tell everybody what you do.
Yeah, so I'm the founder and CEO of One Shot. We're a lifestyle coaching business that basically helps people, change their lifestyle, lose weight, get healthy, overcome disease, diabetes, cholesterol, things like that. We have a private facility in McAllen, and most of our business is online. But yeah, that's basically in a nutshell, kind of like what I do, and I just solely focus on that itself. One thing.
Yeah, I think at one point you told me that a huge percentage of your people that come into your business are online.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, all online. Yeah, because if you think about it, most people don't need to work. Most people do not need to work out to lose weight or to get healthy. Like, you need to, right? But it's not the biggest part, right? And most people need, a sustainable form of nutrition, and they need accountability, right? And so because of that, most people don't actually need to come in person, or they don't need someone in person, right? They just need the right strategy. So we focus a lot of our efforts to work with people online, right? And that's how we're able to have, a small gym, but yet work with so many people all throughout the Valley, throughout the US, and focusing on that, on coaching. Honestly, that's really what it is.
Yeah, what does this statement mean to you? The McAllen and surrounding cities were ranked the most obese city in the nation. Like, that's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. I think, honestly, it's just a culture. I think at the core of it, right? It's a culture, and it's not surprising given the fact of where we are at, so close to the border, and the way, I guess, the way the culture is here and how food is cooked, and we just pass that on generation to generation, right? So, I mean, it's not surprising. I think it's kind of expected.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I remember 2.5 years ago when I started my weight loss journey, I was at 250, and I got down to 186 probably about a year later. And I get why people give up, man. It's so damn hard. Like, I get it. You go for 6 months without seeing any results, and then slowly starts to come, and then you got to keep doing it over and over and over and over. It's like it never ends. So that is really where the mindset has to shift, because it's not a quick process. And I think we've been ingrained and brought up that we want an instant gratification world, and it's really not like that with anything. It's not like that with business. It's not like that with fitness, health, not even with marriage. Like, everything takes time and patience. What do you see on your end?
I honestly, I think that most people are doing the wrong strategy. That's all it is, right? Because for anybody, if you're doing the right thing, if you're seeing results in 14 days, because that's legitimately how long it takes to see results, right? If you're not seeing results, you're doing the wrong things, right? And so the majority of people are just doing the wrong things, right? They're trying to solve a problem that they don't know how to solve.
Yeah.
Right. It's like if I told you, fix the transmission to your car right now. Well, you're going to be on YouTube and you're going to start researching. And how long do you think that's going to take you to fix your transmission? Right.
Yeah.
You'd have to become a master at that craft to where you could actually do it, which would take you years probably, right? In comparison to just going to the transmission shop, take your car in, it'll be ready in 2 days.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's not that, it's hard to fix a transmission. It's just you just don't know how to fix it. So when it comes to getting results, losing weight, improving your health, right? It's not hard. It's just like you're just trying to solve a problem you don't know how to solve. You're trying to fix something you don't know how to fix. And it's not as simple as, just eat clean and exercise, right? Because everybody does that. But why are they still not getting results? Or why does it take so long to see change?
Yeah.
Right. And that's simply because that you're not doing the right things. And at the core of it, that's just of what it is. Right. And so, we could, You could pay with time or you could pay with money at the core of it, right? And this is coaching on any aspect. If you think of your business, if you think of your health, um, if you think of anything, right? You could pay with time or money, meaning you could pay with time, meaning you could go years of trial and error trying to lose weight, right? Trying to grow your business or trying to do these things, right? You could spend a lot of years trying to figure it out, or go find somebody who's had success in that specific area.
Yeah.
Pay with time, right? So it's like you pay for the shortcut to get there.
Is it a pride thing that most people want to figure it out for themselves? Because I feel like a lot of people like keep on making the same mistakes over and over and over again, and then when they're finally at rock bottom, they're like, okay, let me try this now. And even at that point, they'll still continue to try.
Yeah, I think that everybody has a different threshold of pain, right? Um, a different tolerance to pain, right? Sometimes people are just not in enough pain to make a change, right? Because you could be overweight, but if it's like, oh, it's not that bad, right?
Yeah.
In comparison to you have a stroke in the middle of the night and your daughter's crying because you're going to the hospital,
Right.
right? Very different levels of pain, right? And I don't think it's a pride thing. I just think we take our health for granted. That's a lot of what it is. People take it for granted and we prioritize other things above that, right? We prioritize work, family, friends, social life. We prioritize all these other things and we think nothing's going to happen to us because we saw our grandparents and great grandparents live to 98, smoking cigarettes every day and drinking alcohol and eating fried food. And we think, oh, well, they live that long, so I will live that
Right.
long, right? And I think a lot of it, that's what it is, because even for us, like I know when somebody is a qualified candidate to work with us, when I know that they are in enough pain, right? Because when they're in enough pain, I know for a fact they're going to follow through with what they have to do. So it's a tie down to get to the goal, right? And so, yeah, so like I said, and that goes back down into the culture, right? It's just a culture that, it's not a standard, right? If you live in an environment where everybody is big, you think that is normal. If you live in an environment where everybody's walking outside and running and fit and active and wearing athletic clothes all day long, and you're the only big one, you feel out of place. So you have this subconscious need to go ahead and want to keep up, right? So your environment plays a big role in what, how you view your health and whatnot.
Interesting. I always say that you are a product of your environment. Is there truth to that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I see it like, whenever we are traveling, right? And let's say just even to Austin, for example, right? Everybody's active, moving around and whatnot. And it makes you want to go out and go do that, right? Here in the Valley, it's like there's not a lot of outdoor things to do, and no one's really doing that here. So you don't have any need to want to do that, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, social environment. But then if you think of food environment, right? For example, we were in London, but over the summer for a month, we went to go to London, work from over there, just to work remotely, right? So we spent a month over there working, and I ate all types of foods, and yet I came back a month later, like 6-8 pounds lighter.
Wow.
Eating everything, just because the environment over there, you have to walk everywhere you go, right? Taking, subways. The food is not as processed as the way it is in the US, right? So that type of environment, even though I was eating way more food than I would eat here in the States, I still managed to lose weight, right? Just because of the environment I was in.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, because I always hear about processed food here in the United States, and for anybody that just looks on the surface, like you look at a box, like you just eat it, you feed it to your kids. I saw a post yesterday that some school up north banned like Fruit Loops because of the dye that was in it.
California,
that's mind-boggling to me, because like this type of stuff is allowed here in the United States, and like in other countries, like it's not even allowed. They like ban it and all that stuff. Like it's a very interesting thing to see that. Like where do you think the United States has gone or it allows like all these chemicals and all this stuff to be in our foods? Like, is that the reason why we have such health problems, high health problems?
Honestly, I was actually having this conversation with somebody a few days ago, and a lot of it is because we live in a capitalistic society, right? We are the most powerful nation in the world because of the capitalism here, right? Capitalism meaning that we're here for profits. The US is here to make money, right? That's what it's built upon, right? That's why it's the land of opportunity, right? People come here because there's more opportunity here. And so when the focus is on, capitalism, making money, making profits for profits, and that's the priority of it, you're going to make sacrifices and changes to make things last longer and be better. So an example, we need, you could make more money having larger chicken breasts,
Yeah.
right? In comparison to organic, right? We could get it 3 times the size and sell it, right? More. And how do we do that? Well, we need to inject these chickens with, steroids, and we don't want them to get sick. So because they're all pent up together, so we need to inject them with antibiotics as well, right?
Mhm.
And so then we'll do that to meats. And then when it comes to, dry foods, right? We want these Fruit Loops to have a shelf life for 1 year, for example. Well, that's going to need this red color dye. It's going to need this chemical to do that, right? Because if it could have a longer shelf life, we could make more and sell more, right? And they won't go to waste. In comparison to other countries where it's illegal to put these chemicals inside of foods because they can cause cancer, they can cause all these medical conditions, right? And so because of that, you'll find foods in other countries to probably expire faster, right? And so because of that, right, is the reason where I feel that, and then I think corruption, the way you'll find in any other country, right? There's a lot of corruption even in the food industry when if you think of the, the USDA, FDA, things like that, where there's under the table, agreements happening, getting paid to label things as organic when they're not really organic, or to let something pass, or to be able to justify something to say, it's okay to have this many carcinogens in food, even though it causes cancer, the human body can handle this much.
Wow.
Right. And so those are the type of sacrifices that a society will make to make more profits.
It seems like everything is stacked against us, man. It's like
It really is. It's like we are the greatest nation to live in for opportunity, but the worst nation for a way of life.
wow.
Right. And so it's like the sacrifice. Like that's why, like, if you travel anywhere, right, most countries don't have the economy that we have in the US, but they have better way of living there.
Yeah. The quality of their life is better.
Quality of life is better, right? People are not focused on just working all day and all thinking about, work and money. Like people are just like really thinking about, their philosophy on life, enjoying life, enjoying the small things. And that's why it's very peaceful. Like whenever people travel to different parts of Europe, they feel very at peace and calm because the way of life is just so different. The way of thinking is very different, right?
Yeah.
But you couldn't go and just start a business over there and expect it to be as successful as it would be in the US because the economy is different.
Yeah. I had been scratching my head for a long time, and I dived into AI last year when I first got access to it. And ever since I had lost the weight, I was at the rooftops like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do this. And then I found out real fast that nobody likes to be told what to do. So that's where I came to the decision, or the thing where you have to inspire people instead of tell them what to do. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah. Nobody likes to be told what to do, right? Instead, you want to be a person of great influence, right? And great influence is you know what you want someone to do, right? But you will not tell them what to do, but you'll ask them a series of questions to get them to do what you want them to do, right? Being able to influence somebody, right? And then if you think about influencing the masses, right? Well, how do we influence the masses? right? And that's, I mean, if you think about marketing in itself is psychology, right? But this could be marketing to get people to want to make a change in their health, or right, or want to do business with you, right? And and if you think about it, it's like, how do we do that? Well, we have to communicate to people in a way that they feel understood,
Hmm.
right? Meaning you're able to communicate people's problems, then they can communicate to themselves and they feel understood. And because they feel understood, right, because of what you're saying, then they are more susceptible to to listening to what you're going to tell them to do, or to just listen to you, period. Because in order to get someone to do what you want them to do, they got to just listen to you,
Right.
right? And so a lot of it comes down into that, right? And so that's where, you want to understand the person who you are targeting very, very clearly. Like, you want to know them inside out, right? So when I think of somebody who is a busy professional, business owner, and struggling with their health, I know exactly what they think about at night. I know what worries them. I know their fears. I know their common struggles. I know what they're dealing with. So when I communicate, I'm talking about all these struggles. I'm not even telling them what to do, but I'm just talking about all these struggles using stories. And then this person's like, wow, that describes me to the T,
Yeah.
right? And so now that person's listening to you, right? And then that person may ask, like, hey, like, you just described me to the T. What do you think I should do to improve my health, to grow my
Interesting.
business, whatever it is, right? And so whenever people don't like being told what to do directly, people want to be able to ask, what do I do? And when they ask what to do, then they've given you permission to tell them what to do.
And
So
is
it's like,
that kind of like a thing where they can take ownership now, instead of like saying, hey, this guy told me what to do. I kind of came up with the idea, kind of like that.
yeah, and yeah, exactly that, right? I mean, think of the reason why you go to a doctor, right? Like, you go because you trust that person is a professional within what they do. The
Right.
doctor's going to tell the doctor will tell you what to do. Take this medication, do XYZ. Do you question it? No,
No.
you just do it because it's coming from a place of authority,
Right.
right? People don't like being told what to do, I think, for two reasons. For one, they didn't ask for it, right?
Yeah.
Like, I didn't ask you for tell me what to do, and then two, right? They'll take it from a place of authority,
Yeah.
right? And then that's when people will actually do what you say, right? When it comes from a place of authority, where they know that you are the expert in that specific field.
Interesting. So we got what, 1.2 or 1.3 million people in the Rio Grande Valley, and since I'm assuming that McAllen and the surrounding city is the most obese city in the nation. I'm sure it's just not McAllen and the surrounding cities. I'm sure it's in Brownsville, Harlingen, stuff like that. So we got 1.2 to 1.3 million people, and heart disease, obesity, diabetes is such a rampant disease here in the Rio Grande Valley. How do we solve obesity here in the Rio Grande Valley? How do we get more people to wake up and say, hey, this is, you're going to go through this later in life? How do we fix obesity?
Honestly, I I like to go down to, like, the the core of it. So if you want to think about solving obesity, right, you have to think of, how do I change this culture? Because that's the core of it. It's not that we don't have enough healthy places to eat, or a lack of education and whatnot, right? Because we're in a generation of information, right? So in order to solve for obesity, we have to figure out how to solve for society. How do we change a society,
Hmm.
right? And that is actually very, very quite complex, because if we look at the other side of it, and you go to the healthiest nations of the world, right? So if you think of different parts of Asia, right, where the life expectancy is very high, right? They have a long life expectancy over there, right? Because most of the food is healthy, right? It's a culture where people just, opt for healthy food. So if you were trying to change that society and say, how do we take this obesity rate from 5% in Asia to 80%? Well, that would be very hard because you could put all the fast food places and fatty foods everywhere, but people are still not going to eat it because it's a culture. They didn't grow up eating that. So they
Right.
just wouldn't eat it, right? So all the education could be there to get them to gain weight, but they still wouldn't do it. So it's like we have to figure out, it's like, how do we solve for a culture issue, right? And to solve at a culture issue will take many generations, many generations, right? We're talking our grandkids,
Wow.
generations for that to change, because the way that would start, right, is society, right? If you think of the valley or this area, would have to work collectively to teach their children how to live a healthier lifestyle, right? And you're not going to have 100% of people do that. You may have a small percentage of people do that. And then it becomes an ongoing thing of trying to change these generations, which is our kids, right? How to eat and live to a healthier lifestyle. Because the culture, it's the way it is that we just do what our parents told us to do.
Yeah.
Our parents told us, don't leave the table until you finish all the food on your plate. There's people in other parts of the world who don't have any food and you're leaving food behind. But as a kid, you're like, I'm full. I don't want to eat anymore. You know, I don't want to eat, but your parents force you to eat. So we've
Right.
been raised to overeat past the point that we are content or satisfied within our stomach, right?
And that's an interesting thought, because also, like, you think about like just our parents, and then right before them, like my parents were immigrants, like my grandparents were immigrants, so they came over from Mexico, and then my parents were here. So you think about like the scarcity of food back then and how hard it was to be able to get food and stuff like that. So yeah, I can see how, yeah, our parents would say eat all your food, because at when they were growing up, it was scarce at that point. And that, it just goes back to the thing. It was like, you are a product of your environment, whether you break out of it or not. You were still a product of your environment.
Yeah, exactly. And so we're just doing what our parents told us to do, right? We are cooking the way we saw our parents cook, right? And so how do we change that, right? Well, we have to start cooking different for our kids. We have to start teaching our kids different ways. So when they grow up, they will do what we're doing, right?
Yeah,
And
it's hard too, though.
yeah, exactly. And the reason why it would take generations is because it's very hard to get like a society to work collectively to that one mission, right? So you will have small little segments of the market doing that, right? You have 10% of the population doing that. So you could just think of, calculate over time how that would actually change.
Yeah. Let's change the subject to fitness. Fitness, and I always think there's obviously different ways for fitness, and there's different goals. And I've always thought that your ideal weight is not your ideal body. And the reason I'm saying that is because there's cardio, there's weightlifting, there's CrossFit, there's a bunch of stuff. In your industry, what works the best for most people? Because, like, for me, I honestly do not enjoy working out. Like, I go 3 times a week and I don't like it. I don't like lifting heavy stuff. I don't like going over and over every single week, over and over and over again. But I think at this point, it's just become like, this is what I do. This is where I want to go in my life. I want to be able to live a better life in the future. So this is the sacrifice that I have to take. But for anybody that wants to get started, and there's a lot of people, like, I think a lot of people are just, they're disillusioned on how long it actually takes to get results. What is the best way for people to get quick results that will be like, okay, the knob switched in my brain and I can live this life going forward?
Yeah, so I think the quickest way to get results is doing the right plan consistently, right? The right thing, right? The right plan, right? And I say consistently because we are all good at eating good Monday through Thursday, Monday through Friday, but we all fail on the weekends, right? And so the easiest way for me to describe it is, if you eat clean for 5 days, right? And you go one day eating bad, well, you just eliminated 3 days of clean eating. Then you do it again on Sunday. Now it's 6 days of clean eating, right? So then the whole week of dieting was all for nothing because of those 2 bad meals you had.
Yeah.
right? And so consistency is the absolute key, right? And if you think about the best type of fitness to do, right? The best type of fitness is the one that you know you will look forward to doing every single day. That's the best type of fitness, right?
Yeah.
Whether that is swimming, walking, running, weight training, CrossFit, cardio, whatever it is. If you look forward to doing it, if you love doing it, you'll have no problem doing it. And I think people overcomplicate it way too much. And like with us, we track so much data on every single client. We track tons of data. So we have some clients that we work with where they love Orange Theory, right? They love their CrossFit, and they come to work with and they come to apply to work with us because they're not getting any results. And they're like, I've been doing this CrossFit, I've been doing this Orange Theory for years, and I've literally lost like 10 pounds over 2 years. I need a change. And the first thing I will ask them is, do you love what you're doing at Orange Theory? Or do you love what you're doing at this group class or this CrossFit? Do you love it? They're like, yeah, like I look forward to doing it every day. Like, and the one thing I'll tell them is like, then don't stop doing that. There's nothing wrong with your fitness. You're just missing two big components of what creates results, which is a sustainable form of nutrition and accountability. That's all you're missing. So we have clients who work out at other places. We have clients who have other personal trainers, because I'll tell them you don't need to change that, right? And so when we look at data of those people who are doing high intense workouts, such as CrossFit, such as whatever it is, right? And then we have some people who hate working out, right? And they're like, look, if I could lose 40 pounds just walking, I'd rather do that. And we'll tell them, perfect. You're just going to walk for 1 hour a day, 3 times a week. From the data that we've collected, the person doing high intense cardio, right? Sweating, nonstop weights and whatnot, and the person doing walking will both lose weight at the same rate.
Interesting.
Neither one of them loses weight faster than the other, right? When they're on a structured program, right? And so you would think, okay, well, yeah, the harder you work out, the more results you get, right? But if the nutrition is not aligned with it, nothing will happen, right? Like nothing will happen. It doesn't matter how hard you work out.
Yeah.
So, and again, it all goes back to what is the goal, right? If your goal is just to get strong because you need to be stronger for your work, then yeah, do more weight training to gain strength, right? But at the end of the day, it has to be something you actually love doing, because this is a lifestyle that you're going to be doing for the rest of your life. And very rarely do people do things they hate for long periods of time.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an interesting thing because I like the results that I get from weightlifting. Like that's the reason why I keep going back over and over and over again for the past 2.5 years, is because I really enjoy the results. And then when I was talking to my trainer at the beginning, I was like, I'm only interested in vanity. So I'm coming in for 250 pounds. I was like, I only want vanity because I think 4 times before that, I had lost significant weight. And it was just by cardio and stuff like that. But this is the first time that I was actually like lifting weight, strength training. And I started to notice that my body was changing. I was like, oh, this is what I should have been doing all along. That way I would have been a lot further back. Yeah. But what is it about the accountability aspect? Because I struggle sometimes. Like if I go to the gym by myself, I get the allure of having a personal trainer, of accountability, because you need somebody there. Do this, do this, do this, do this. So it takes away the thinking out of your brain. What is it about that accountability that is so powerful?
Well, if you think about the secret to getting results, if you think about the results that you got, anybody, right? You only got results because you were consistently doing a series of actions, right? That's why you got results, right? Yeah. Now, if we know then that consistency is the secret to getting results, right? Well, how do we solve for consistency? Because the biggest problem people have is I can't stay consistent. I'm not disciplined. I'm not motivated, right? So how do we solve for that? Well, to solve for that, the solution to that is accountability, right? So accountability is the solution to consistency. If you want to be more consistent with your workouts because you lack discipline or motivation, or you don't like doing it, then you may need a form of accountability like a personal trainer, right? Where you have an appointment with, right? Everybody always shows up to their appointment. If you have somebody to let down, right, that's accountability. Like you will show up because you're like, man, this guy's waiting for me there at the gym. Like I need to actually show up, right? And the great thing is when I get there, I'm not gonna have to think about what I'm gonna do, right? But the accountability part comes from the fact that someone's there waiting for you. And if you don't show up, they're going to be texting you. And because you gave someone your word, that you were going to show up, right? And we all have some small form of integrity that we want to be a person of our word. So if we say we're going to do something or be somewhere, we actually go and do it, right? And you only get that from accountability, because if it's you by yourself and you have no accountability, well, whose word are you going to give? Like, you can't give yourself your own word to do something. You can, right? But most people don't have that, right? A large segment of people don't have that type of discipline.
And that's also translated into business and everything. That's why there's coaching in every different industry, right?
Everybody, yeah. Like, I mean, like everybody needs a coach, and there's a coach in everything. I mean, like me and my wife were talking about, like, you know, like if we were to have kids, I was telling her, like, this time around, we should get a coach on how to raise a baby. You know, like there's coaches for that who would teach you how to do that, right? Like, why do it the way that our parents are going to tell us to do it with the bad habits and everything, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. So it's like
the manual now is out there.
Exactly. Yeah, and there's someone to teach you. Yeah, and it's for everything, right? Like, and I think that's the great thing about this generation now, is that we have solutions out there for everything. But yeah, it's the exact same thing within business.
Yeah, let's talk about nutrition, because I never really understood this, because obviously our culture here is you just eat whatever and just you go work out. I've seen people that were like slamming down beer before they go and work out, stuff like that. So it's like, I don't think people really understand the nutrition aspect of how important it is, because for about a year, I was counting calories like consistently, and it really showed me like what I was putting into my body, and the exact different portions, and like how to eat correctly, right? And that calorie counting, it kind of just gave me like a little tool to be like, okay, this is a good thing to understand. Like, this is a valuable skill that you should know, because you're just not stuffing stuff into your face all the time. Because I had to figure out that when I was counting my calories, it was kind of over a week-long period that I would count them. So the 7 days, I would hit a certain amount of calories. And that's how I was kind of able to like eat the same thing exactly Monday through Friday, and then or Sunday through Friday, and then have like some cheat meals on Saturday. And those cheat meals really help with my psyche and my everything, because like when I was just going chicken breast all the time, it's like it gets very mundane, and you kind of like, just like, is this all it is? Like, forget this. I feel that's why people, you know, give up a lot of times too. But kind of touch on the nutrition part, because I think a lot of people don't really understand the gravity of what you put into your mouth really changes everything.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is the way I see it. If you want to change your body composition, right? Changing size. You want to get big, you want to get small, right? What determines that is your nutrition. That's what determines that, right? A big portion of it, right? Fitness has its place in it, but your nutrition will determine whether muscles will grow, whether they'll shrink. Meaning, if you starve yourself and eat very little, your body will feed off of muscle. You'll lose muscle. You eat enough food, train the right way, you'll gain muscle. But if you undereat and you train very hard, you will not gain muscle, right? They need nutrients to be able to grow. And so it's the biggest lack of awareness that we have, right? A lot of what we do, and you'll see this within our content, is education, right? Because there's a lack of education, specifically in South Texas, where we think that it's just exercise, right? And we just put nutrition on the side, like it's not that important, like it's secondary, right? And so it's actually primary, right? It is absolutely everything, right? And I think a lot of the times, whenever we think of diet, we think of all the sacrifices we're going to have to make. People think, I'm going to have to just eat salads now and chicken and rice and that's it and whatnot. And they think it's just that, right? Well, why do they think that? because every place they go to in the valley, that's what they're telling them to do.
Yeah.
So it's put a bad taste in people's mouth when they think of nutrition and dieting, because they think of all the sacrifice, because it's easy, right, to give you a diet like, all right, eat chicken, broccoli, and rice 3 times a day, eat egg whites in the morning, and you could have a yogurt as your snacks. That's like the
Right.
amateur diet. Anybody could tell someone to do that. That's like the traditional bodybuilder's diet, right? And yeah, it works because it's so restricted, but a lot of what you have to think about is, how long can you do that for?
Yeah.
And if you cannot do it for the rest of your life, right, you will eventually stop, go back to old habits, and then gain all the weight back, right? Instead of, why don't I learn how to eat the foods I love to eat at the restaurants I eat out at with my social life and still be able to lose weight?
Yeah.
And people think that's impossible, but they think it's impossible because they have yet to learn how to do it, right? And that's what a sustainable form of nutrition is, right? And so we got to think about sustainability when it comes to nutrition. And sustainability means that I could eat whatever I want and still be able to lose weight, or I could eat whatever I want and maintain my progress of what I've had.
Yeah.
Lost 40 pounds, I'm able to maintain it, right? And that doesn't happen with a diet plan. It doesn't happen with a nutrition plan. It happens with learning the strategies, right? Strategies and tactics, right? Learning more about your body and how your body responds to foods, right? To where you can actually do this long term.
Yeah. Let's talk about food addiction, because for a long time I was addicted to food. I'm an emotional eater sometimes. Like if you leave a jar of candies, especially during Halloween, which we're getting close to,
Yeah.
I usually take them away from all my kids. It's like, you can't have any, and then one night I'll just like attack them all.
Yeah.
It's horrible. But let's talk about food addiction. Like, do you have clients that struggle with food addiction, and how do you help them with that?
Yeah. I feel like food addiction would be something along the lines of binge eating, right? Meaning, I mean, I think everybody loves food to some extent, right? But then I think about, like, how do we define addiction,
Yeah.
right? And addiction, I define it as, think of a drug addict who's addicted to drugs, right? Well, why are they addicted to drugs? Well, because there's a certain feeling that they get, right, that gets them chasing that feeling every single time, right? And when it comes to food addiction, right, what feeling are we chasing? Or what are we trying to solve for, right? Sometimes it's a legitimate eating disorder, right? And do we solve for that here? No, we don't, right? If somebody has an eating disorder, they need to see a licensed counselor, right? For that, because there's something that happened along their life that caused them to get that, right? Whether it's anorexia, bulimia, whatever it is, right? But on the other hand, the majority of people, right, if you think of food addiction, it happens due to an emotional trigger, right? An emotional trigger, meaning you are highly stressed, right? So you'll go towards that food, that dirty food, right? And you just want to have it, right? You are sad, depressed. Some people resort to food for that. When you are happy, right? Celebrating, super
Yeah.
happy, I'm excited, like, let me eat, right? And then, you have those triggers, right? And if you have zero emotional regulation, then you're just going to just satisfy all those emotions with food the way you're used to doing, right? Because you're using food as that type of, you like, you were addicted to it in that type of way,
Yeah.
right? And so when I think of food addiction, that's kind of where my mind goes. Aside from, right, if we want to get very technical, the foods that are now, foods that are very easily accessible, right, have chemicals and ingredients that create the addiction. Like cheese, for example. There's a chemical in cheese that's found in cocaine that gets you addicted to it.
Really? I just started
Yeah.
eating a lot of cheese.
Yeah. And it's very addictive, right? Same thing when it comes to sugars, when it comes to Coke, right? You drink Coca-Cola, right? A regular Coke, right? Well, Coca-Cola gets you more thirsty. So it makes you want to drink more, right? And so you end up wanting to drink more. right? So again, it goes down to the chemicals found in foods that create addiction to them, making you want to buy more and eat more. Again, going back to us being in a capitalistic society that's for profit, trying to make more and more money. It's like, how do we get people to drink more Coke? Well, let's put ingredients in there and compounds that'll get people to want to drink more.
Wow.
Right. Same thing applies with all other types of foods. And these are the obviously unhealthier foods. Right.
Yeah.
And so it could stem from there, from emotions. Like it's a very wide topic. I guess that it could be several things.
Yeah, it's interesting because Coke Zero is one of my I love Coke Zero. I have to like slowly. I'll buy like a 6-pack and it'll last me for like 2 weeks. The small cans, because I don't know what the fuck is in Coke Zero.
Yeah.
What is it?
Yeah.
There's absolutely nothing. It's just a bunch of compounds and chemicals and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's 0 calories, 0 sugars. It's like, you know what I mean? Like it is the better alternative, yes, but again, it's like, well, what's in it then?
Yeah, it's kind of scary. Let's talk about balancing business and fitness, because I think in both of our industries, we kind of cater to business professionals, right? What is like the biggest misconception that busy people have as far as fitness and exercise go?
I think the biggest misconception is that you have to sacrifice time in order to get in fitness. Right? Like you have to sacrifice time, and people, whenever if you own a business, you think about time because time is so scarce, right? And you think like, damn, I don't have time to separate to be devoting, X amount of hours per day, every single day working out. So the biggest misconception is that people think that they need to exercise every day, or they need to exercise period to see results. That's why we work with mainly busy professionals, because we show them how to lose weight without going to the gym. Sounds impossible, right? But that's what we teach, like at the core of it, right? Even though we have a private gym, right? But again, that's the reason why the majority of our business is all online, right? But because we teach people how to lose weight without going to the gym, that's a lot more enticing for a business owner who's extremely busy, very limited on time, right? Like it's that big misconception that they have. So when they hear about us, they're like, holy shit, I would rather do that because I don't have the time, right? And there's a time and place for that type of person who eventually does get into fitness, right? Because as a business owner, fitness becomes your outlet to manage the stress that you go through as a business owner.
Yeah.
Right. And that happens, again, over the course of time of us working with somebody and then getting them to do that, right? Like for me personally, I've really slacked on traditional weight training because of time, right? And instead, right, I go play tennis now, right? And that's become my form of fitness, to where I'll do tennis practice and have somebody there waiting for me, and I have to actually show up, but I actually love doing it, right? I'm like, to me, like that's my stress relief right there. Right?
Can you expand on that? Because I feel like a lot of people are just going 100 miles per hour every single day. They get up, they're already stressed. They go to bed, they're stressed. Throughout the day, they're stressed. I think that, like, when I go to workouts, it kind of signals the end of my day, where I can, like, okay, I'm gonna go lift heavy ass weights. I'm gonna leave it all here, and then after that, I start to decompress. Can you kind of talk about the importance of that? Because I don't think a lot of people really understand that you need these outlets to be able to just like to turn off your mind and then readjust.
Yeah. So stress is not going anywhere, right? And I think that's the first thing we have to accept. You're going to be stressed all your life about different things in different periods of your life, right? So when the moment you accept that, because people think, oh, the moment I have a lot of money, I'm not going to be stressed. The moment my business doubles and I have all this profit, I'm not going to be stressed, right? And we have these fallacies around it. But the sooner you could accept, stress is always going to be there, right? Maybe not as frequent, but it's always going to be there, right? And so first, it's like, okay, accepting that, right? Stress is always going to be there. Then the second thing is, how am I managing this stress? The stress is a little beast inside of you that's not going anywhere. You can't get rid of it. You could control it though, right? You could manage it, right? And then we see, okay, how do I manage my stress, right? Do I manage it with disempowering ways or with empowering ways, right? Most people manage stress with disempowering ways. They resort to food. They resort to sweets. They resort to alcohol. They resort to drugs, right? They resort to partying and clubbing, right? Those are disempowering ways to manage stress, right? Which is what most people do. Then we got to think about what are the empowering ways for me to manage stress, right? And that could be exercising, working out, right? It could be meditation, right? Yoga, a cold plunge. I recently started doing cold plunging. That's
Yeah,
a
I
way to
was going to talk
manage
about that
stress.
a bit.
Yeah, that's a way to manage stress. Counseling, right? It could be counseling, like talking to somebody, right? Those are empowering ways to manage stress, right? Those are outlets for us to put that energy of stress inside of us out somewhere, right? And so the majority of time, people resort to disempowering ways to manage stress, right? And that's where we have to make that shift.
Yeah, what is it about, like, when you talk about like counseling or visiting somebody to talk about your problems? What is it about that act that most people are like, well, no, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that. Like, no way. Like, what is it about that specifically that people are just so turned off about it?
It could be several things. I think the things that come to mind for me is shame, guilt, right? Lack of vulnerability, why they don't want to, and also pride, because there's a sour taste in people's mouth when they think of counseling, therapy, needing a therapist. They resorted to, I'm a crazy person, so I need a therapist, right? But the same way that you would need a trainer for your body to teach you how to train your body and push your body, well, who do you have for your mind?
Right.
Who's training you on your mind, right? On your mindset, within your mental health, right? And so a lot of it comes down into that, because there are things that both me and you know within ourselves that you've never told anybody. You're holding all that in. You can't even tell your spouse about it, right? You have no outlet for that, right? If you've ever felt what it feels like to talk to somebody who's not going to judge you, who's going to take what you say and just listen to you, and you get that off your chest, you have a big sense of relief, because you're like, wow, I just had to tell somebody that. Like
You have to get it out of your
get it out. Yeah.
mind,
Out of your
body.
mind. Yeah. And that sense of confiding in someone, to be able to open up like that. Right.
Yeah.
There is a sense of relief, and for someone to understand you, right? The sense of understanding. Right. And that's where it doesn't have to be a counselor, therapist, it could be a life coach, right? Somebody to where you can open up like that about it. Right.
Yeah.
That's a way to manage stress, right? Sometimes we're so stressed, these thoughts in our head, and we need to talk about it. We have to get it out there, and we need somebody to ask us questions to get us grounded, because we're not grounded. We're just all over the place.
Right. What was it about most people that they cannot focus on certain things for a short or large amounts of times? Like, I've noticed this even with me. Like, if I don't have a checklist, my mind will just start scattering off into different places, and it's hard for me to refocus. What is it about the focus that people just cannot, like, sit here? I'm going to do this for the next hour, and this is all my attention is going to be.
Yeah. I think that comes on like ADHD, right? Like where
do I have ADHD or what?
I think I know I do. I definitely do. It's something that I know I battle with every day, right? And just like if you think about focus, right, is a thing to master, right? I haven't mastered it, right? But because we never spend time like actively having a timer, it's like, okay, I'm going to work on this thing for 10 minutes straight, right? And you stop yourself from distractions, right? And so yeah. So, and then again, I think the other part of focus is doing things you love doing, right? If you find yourself getting easily distracted, right, you're probably doing something you really don't enjoy doing, right? Because even I've found myself, like for me, I love building businesses at the foundation and building all the systems and processes to make it function like a machine, right? Autonomously. That's what I love to do. So when I get into doing that type of work, I am so focused. I'm just like not even paying attention to anything, because I'm actually loving what I'm doing, right? I'm an architect of this whole thing, building this whole thing out, right? And so, because I actually love doing that. But then when I go into doing other parts, right, that I really don't enjoy doing, I get easily distracted, right? 'Cause I'm like, it's of no interest to me,
Right.
right? And so, and so a lot of it, again, you're not always going to be doing things you love, right? So you got to then battle, what are the things I don't like doing, and what are some small skills I can learn to stay more focused, right? Sometimes I saw this one ad that it was like just a timer that goes on your desk and it has like a dial and it turns, right? You turn it and you have it right next to your desk and you start working and you don't stop until that timer goes off. And you could set it for 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatnot, right? Little tactic you could do there, right? You could leave your phone. If you think about identifying what is the thing that makes me lose my focus, what's the thing that distracts me the most people, it's their phone, right? They start doing something and then they go look at their phone. It's like, well, how about you leave your phone in your car for the next hour, right? Because then you're going to be working and then you're going to seek for your phone, like, oh damn, it's not there. Okay,
Yeah.
let me get
And then
back to work.
20 minutes. Yeah. And then if you have it there, it's like 20 minutes are gone because you just scroll.
Exactly, right. But and again, I think the whole ADHD comes into play because that's like you're going against, probably like what's going in your mind, right? Like if you have that, ADHD, I think it makes it that much more difficult.
When you started having success with One Shot, what was the mindset that you had before, and then what was the mindset that you had during, and then what's the mindset you have now? Like, what does that evolution look like? Because business is hard. Like it's hard. You get up every day. You have to go do the things that you don't want to do necessarily, but day after day, you still have to get up doing the things that you need to do. What are the mindsets that you had to go through over the past years?
I think a lot of it was just of limiting beliefs, right? I think that was all of it, right? Limiting beliefs are all within your mindset, right? And so limiting beliefs can be, I mean, at least for me personally, is how much money can I possibly make was one limiting belief, right? Like I had the bar so low. How much money is someone willing to spend, right? Like that was another limiting belief. People don't want to pay that much money was another limiting belief, right? A lot of these beliefs were of how I viewed the world, right? Or how I viewed where I live, right? One of the biggest ones is where I live, people don't spend that much money. It's a very poor society, and people don't like spending that much money, right? That was a limiting belief.
Yeah.
That's a very wrong belief, right? People do want to spend money. People want to spend a lot of money, right? I have that belief. People want to spend a lot of money, right? Another one was, of how people get results within weight loss. I used to think that the only way to get results is only with personal training. That's it, right? Limiting belief, right? So I think it was a series of limiting beliefs that I only broke when I got my first mentor who called me out on all of those beliefs and limiting beliefs and told me what was actually true, how the world actually is. Right. And so if you don't have someone to call that out on you, right, you'll continue living in your own reality.
Right.
And that reality can be a very scarce reality and not an abundant reality. So yeah, a lot of it came from somebody identifying and calling me out on those limiting beliefs. Second stage of that, right, was me seeing it for myself,
Yeah.
right? Me experiencing it, right? Making that much more money, having people pay this so much money for this, seeing how much money is actually here where I live, experiencing that, right? And then future pace, like right now, being able to identify what other limiting beliefs do I have?
Yeah.
Because we have them. No matter what stage you're in, you're going to always have them. But a lot of it is being able to identify which ones do I have.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because those limiting beliefs, if you don't see it for yourself, and I joined a mentorship group a while back, like early during summer, and I joined the membership group, and I was like, well, I want to see this for myself. So it was a large ticket item, but I was like, I need to dive into a new skill so I can learn a new skill going forward. Because I kind of see where the whole world's going digital. Like it's just more digital every single day. So I invested into this group, And you do have to really see it for yourself to believe it, because if you just go about your day and you're stuck here in this one area, that's why I went to Miami a while back, because I wanted to experience it and see it for myself. And then sure as shit, like I saw the guy make $28,000 that day within a 1 hour period. I was like, it's possible. Like you need to be able to see that it's possible for yourself, because if you don't, and that's the other part too, is because like you're always juggling what people are gonna say, what people are gonna think, right? Like for me, it's like, what is she gonna say if I go over here and I do this crazy thing? I'm investing all this money and it doesn't work out. Like those are always the thoughts that are within my head. Like, what if I fail and I just wasted all this money, right? But I have a large enough threshold for risk that I'm willing to try out these things. And is it necessarily a good thing? Is it a bad thing to have like a high risk ratio like to life? Like what do you see on your end?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just depends how risk adverse you are. Some people really avoid it, right? And I think it comes down to the individual, right? Because if you are risk adverse and you try to stay away from risk, right? Trying to jump into risk can be very, very stressful for you,
Mm-hmm.
right? It can be very stressful, right? And it's not to say that person should not do it, right?
Right.
But I think when I think of risk, there's different levels of risk, right? And the most that you can do is protecting your downside risk, right? Meaning, if it doesn't work, what do I lose, right? For me personally, I'm a very risky person, right? Like I take big risks, um, and and that's just my own natural personality, right? I'm capable of taking, because if you think about the larger the risk, the more stress there is,
Yeah.
right? What is your stress tolerance, right? Because if your stress tolerance is very low, then it may not. It may not be wise to take such big risks. You may want to take smaller risks, right? I personally have a high stress tolerance for stress, right? I could take on a big risk and tackle the stress that comes with a big risk like that, right?
Yeah.
And that's just me.
Just because you've kind of like trained yourself over the years, because you've been in those high stress situations, so you can manage?
Yeah, and I think just like from my upbringing, right? Like I've been in very high stressful times. I've had nothing. I've been homeless at one point. Like I know what the other side looks like,
Yeah.
right? So, it's like, so like most people don't know what it looks like. They don't know what that feels like, right? And so that's where so much stress comes into play, because they don't know what that looks like, right? But I've seen it all. I've been through a lot of it. So I know what the other side looks like of it, right? So, for me, I'm not afraid of losing it all. Like, I don't have any attachment to money, to my cars or house or business. I have zero attachment. I could lose everything tomorrow and be perfectly content. Like, I'll
But
be
that is
perfectly fine.
because you have such a high skill set that you know that you can keep on doing, and you can do the next thing just as good.
Yeah. And that comes with a sense of confidence within myself, right? Of that, but also because I know how to live very minimally and be very happy.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you just want to be happy. Everybody just wants to be happy and fulfilled. At the end of the
Yeah.
day, we just think that money, business, all these things are going to make us happy. Having a $2 million in our account, making 50,000 a day, whatever it is, we think that's going to make us happy, because at the end of the day, that's what we're wanting. But when you get all of that, and then you realize, like, holy crap, that's not making me happy, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you start finding out what it actually is, right? And so for me, I think I've passed that stage where I've made quite a bit, and I know like it's no difference, right? So now I get my happiness in different ways. So and I think that's why I'm able to take on such big risks, because I don't have any attachments to things, right? I'm
Yeah.
not scared of losing it all, right? I know I could build something else from the ground up, right? And just like you said, just from my skill set, right? In comparison to, you got lucky one day,
Right.
right? And you made $50,000, but it was lucky. You just got lucky to make that. What are the chances of you reinvesting all that money, and the chance of losing it all? Well, probably very unlikely, because in your head, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make that money again, because I was very
Right.
lucky when I got it. Versus when you actually earned money through your skill sets because of you yourself, you know that you'll get it back, and money's just recycled and it comes back very easily.
Yeah. Let's talk about time. We were talking about this earlier. I just turned 43 in September last month. And I look back, I was like, dude, time passes by so fast. I was talking about my daughter just getting into high school.
Yeah.
I remember when she was just a little kid in Pampers and stuff like that. I was like, time passes by so fast. It's kind of scary.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, like it's and I feel like it
How do you
happens
slow it down, Albert?
as you get older. I feel like it goes by slower. But have you ever had weekends that go by very slow?
So every now and then, yes.
Every now and then, right? Like really
Yeah.
rarely you have a weekend that you're like, damn, that was a long weekend, right?
Yeah.
But very rarely do we question why was it long, right? And when you actually look back and if you identify that it was long because you were probably doing nothing, and because you had nothing to do, you probably got bored, and because you were bored, you were more present in the moment. And
Interesting.
because you were present in the moment, time slowed down because you're here, you're breathing, right? You're not distracting yourself, right? The more distractions we have, the faster time goes, right? And you can, if you ever caught yourself scrolling on reels at night and you're like, holy shit, an hour's already passed.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we live a life of distractions within our work, business, social life, social media, TV. So we're living that, right? But go somewhere where there's no electronics, no service, you don't have a phone, and tell me how fast time goes when
Yeah.
you're just like in nature or just with no distractions. It goes by very slow, actually, right? The way we slow it down is by being more present, right? And trying to eliminate as many distractions as we can, which is almost impossible.
Yeah, it's almost like, again, everything's stacked against us. So like we're meant to be able to just go on and go. Before we finish off the podcast, I want to talk about two more things first. AI. AI is such an interesting thing, man. I always go back to it, and I see, like, I was listening to a podcast the other day that said if we were able to live for the next 5 to 10 years, we would probably be able to live up to 200 to 300 years old. Would you want to live that long?
That's a good question. I don't know. I guess
with the same vitality and the same body that you have now.
I don't think so. I think you would eventually get bored because there's only so much you can experience and gain in life, right? To where eventually you would get to a point that you've done it all, right? And then you lose meaning at some point. I don't think so. And I think a lot of that has to do with, I think, your level of faith that you have, right? And depending on how strong your faith is will determine whether that question would be answered, right? Because I don't think I would, right? I see all of this of what we're living, and like you've ever think this is a whole simulation. None of this is real. It's not real. So I'm not down to be somewhere that's not real for a long time. So yeah, like that's kind of the way I see it. So I don't think so. Me and my wife have had this conversation, and it's like, I think I'll probably live to like 102, maybe, or 3 or something like that. Like, but that's it. Like, not because I want to, but just because I will have a healthy enough body to do so.
Yeah. Okay. The last question. So let's say somebody's lost in life right now. They're working a job they don't enjoy. They're doing the things that they don't enjoy, but they still have to get up day after day after day. They feel defeated. They're just going through life, just whatever it is. They're just going and living just however. What advice do you have for these people to find happiness?
Yeah, honestly. And I think even searching for happiness is probably like the wrong thing, because you're never just happy 100% of the day, all day, right? I think rather than seeking fulfillment and purpose in life is even better, because when you seek fulfillment and purpose, right, you have meaning, right? You know your purpose here, right? And I think the biggest advice is, finding that meaning and purpose in this life, right? Finding the things that make you happy, right? Finding the things that make you feel fulfilled, thinking about what is something I could do for the rest of my life, right? And not get paid for it, right? What is something I could do for the rest of my life and not get paid for it? And it's not that everyone should be a business owner, because not everybody should be a business owner. Not everyone should be an entrepreneur, right? You have to be able to identify, am I the artist? Am I the manager, leader, or am I the entrepreneur, right? And being able to identify which one you are will determine, okay, I'm more on the artist side, so I should be focusing more on my craft. I don't know what my craft is. Okay, then the advice is, let's figure out what is that craft of yours. Try different things, do different jobs, work and try so many new things until you find something that sticks. And you're like, you know what? I like doing these arts and crafts. Like, I genuinely love doing this, or I love helping people lose weight, or I love, taking photos of people and creating art out of that. That's what I genuinely love. Or it could be, I love dealing with people. I love managing people, gathering people together and lifting morale and camaraderie. That's what I love, right? Or I love taking on big risks, right? I love risking it all and living for that high of doing that, right? So identifying that, right? So a lot of it becomes with an identification. I feel like identification of that, right? It's like where figuring that out is like, what is your craft? Like, what do you love doing, right? Because I feel like when you do things you love doing, right, you get good at it and you're living in your purpose. Like, happiness comes, I feel like, as a byproduct of that.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Albert, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your mentorship, man. I've always
of course,
liked speaking to you, man. So before we finish off, let everybody know where they can find you.
Yeah, so could find us on Instagram, One Shot RGV. Same thing on Facebook, One Shot RGV, or on our website, which is one shot, the number one shot.life is our website. So yeah, all the social medias and all that.
Awesome, Albert. I'll see you soon. See y'all
All right,
later.
brother. Talk to you, man. Bye.
Thanks, man.